Okay,
Meeting to order.
the September 24th, budget hearing, special call finance committee meeting. Dr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Thames. Is Mr. Thames on Zoom?
Yes.
Are you gonna vote on Zoom? Mr. Higginbotham,
Here.
Mrs. Smith, and Mr. Harden. Hey, Brian, can you ask Mr. Thames, is he gonna vote on Zoom so I know what the count's gonna be?
Can you not hear me?
We couldn't earlier.
I'm unmuted. Can you not hear me?
We can now. Are you gonna vote, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
Dr. Jones, before you caught the minutes,
Yeah.
on the 22nd, when I was going through them, recapping, I think I forgot to put the one that Nick Hill offered on the tuition, whatever. So can we, if y'all are ready on the 17th, I don't know if you are or not, but can we carry over the 22nd? So I know I've at least got to make that one fix on the 22nd.
Yes, we can carry that over.
I don't know if y'all are even ready on the 17th, but I didn't get them out till this morning.
Okay, so do we want to carry over all the minutes until Monday?
There should be things. Yes.
This entire?
Okay, so we have the 17th and the 22nd outstanding, right?
Yes, sir. And I actually need to publish a budget meeting that you're going to call, because I don't think I have one publicly noticed for Monday.
No, I do not, but I'm going to call a meeting for 4:30 on Monday so we can review everything.
Okay, and I'll publicly notice that.
Sorry, will be needed, huh?
It's going to be needed, yeah. We're going to try to,
When I was on the finance committee,
do we want to go there? No, I'm just teasing. No, I'm just teasing. All right. We made a lot of progress on Tuesday night, and we got through all the funds except for one that we've got to come back to. But tonight, as I had promised, we want to go ahead and deal with the larger issues, which is, I think, let's start with the Tier 2 discussion.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you and I had talked earlier about phone lines.
Yes.
Can I kind of give that report, because it was on our list to report on?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
In 0111, under general government, we had phone lines. Last year's, our current year's expense to date was $41,000. And I've been trying to track down where these phone lines were, and I finally got all the information. These are the alarm lines and the actual old copper lines that were going into our E911 dispatch as backup. And I spoke with Chief Ross, and I spoke with James Yates, and this is all internet now.
The old City Hall.
Yeah. Well, actually, and they got moved to the police building. Oh, they did. They got moved, right. They were originally billed out to, that was what was so difficult, is they were billed out to our old City Hall that has been torn down. And because they're analog lines, copper lines, AT&T has no record of them. They only keep records of digital lines now. But in talking with, excuse me? Oh, they kept charging us. But they were in use because they were like backup lines for the alarms and for the dispatch. But now this has all gone internet. It's all been transferred to the new police building. So we can actually take what is in here at $55,000. I would just probably like to leave a little money for cleaning up any bill that comes in this month and next month.
What page are you on again?
I'm sorry, general fund, that's tab 3, page 7.
Okay, I was over on the police department.
And if you want to like possibly take that down to like $7,500 from $55,000.
Wow. Yeah, we did have a question mark by that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So take
You're talking
that
about the
7,500?
Yeah, right, 55,000 down to 7 because there are no longer copper lines coming in any of our buildings anymore.
Down to how much?
7,500.
Wasn't that a James Taylor song?
I would move to take that line item 11550400 down from 55,000 to 7,500.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Smith. That's a good way to start the meeting.
It is.
Second by Mr. Harden. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Was that an aye, Mr. James?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, 4-0,
I thought, oh,
5-0,
5-0.
5-0.
and Dr. Jones, I have one more good news on capital, before you get to tier one, if y'all can make that change,
Okay.
please.
Tab 9, we're on page 3.
Tab 9, first we need to go to page, because Ms. Andress was correct, and I found today on the feasibility study, reason why I couldn't find it on the ledger this year, it got coded back to 9/30 of 19, so the 18-19 fiscal year. So on page 1 of capital, we need to take out the transfer from grants fund on the revenue side, which is 1208-483-002. We need to take out that $47,998 coming in from grant.
Wait a minute. Tell me where you are on the first page.
On the
Yes.
first page, down at
Tab
Central
9,
Avenue.
page 1, there's
Yeah, I
$47,998 that's supposed to be coming in from the grants fund on that Apple
Okay.
study.
Yep.
So we need to reduce that line item by $47,998, but we're going to reduce an expenditure on the next page. So if you want to do both of them at one time,
Yeah.
the next
Yes.
page will be on page 4. It'll be 1211-584-136, Central Avenue feasibility study for $59,998. That needs to be to zero. And if you want to go and let me tell you the grants fund, y'all can do it all in one motion or not. The grants fund is going to have a revenue of that $47,000 coming in, and then a transfer to capital in the 47, that needs to go out too. So it needs to go out of the grants fund, it needs to go out of the capital.
Okay, so is there one motion to
Yes, so,
change both?
first of all, in the grants, the interfund transfers from the grants fund, we need to take out, take the line item for the Central Avenue feasibility study, from 47,998 down to zero. And then on the Central Avenue feasibility study under expenditures, we need to remove the 59,998 figure and take that to zero as well.
Okay, it's moved by Mrs. Smith. Second by Mr. Higginbotham. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign? Okay, I assume that was an aye, Mr. Thames, so we're going with 5-0. Brian, maybe you need to translate when he says something.
We'll just say if Mr. Thames says no, he needs to pass us.
You can assume it's an aye unless I unmute and say nay.
Okay, well, I'm with you. Okay. It's a silent aye. Okay. That passes 5-0. Okay, what other items, housekeeping do we need to?
Well, and I don't know if you want to get the tier 1, tier 2 later, first, and then if you want to wait till Monday or what, but several of the salary positions are going to go down based on what all I did. And actually, it's some more good news. We found out that 2 of the correction vacant positions in police that Chief Ross was going to take down till January, we found out talking to Peterson and counting them up, they had actually filled them, but so that we didn't have them, we had them double counted up and vacant. So that reduced his salaries a good bit. Plus, we made all those other changes of holding some positions to January and May. But I upped the health insurance too, so we've got all new numbers for a lot of departments. I don't know whether you want to wait and just let us, y'all have the new payroll worksheets, whether y'all want to look at those over the weekend and me summarize it to you, and y'all can vote on it Monday or how you want to do that. But I will tell you from at least hurrying up and doing it today, I think we found about $523,000 reduction. So, because health insurance went up, but a lot of the positions went down. So you will, I'll give you the exact number till we know for sure, but right now, if you look back on tab 3 of the general fund, instead of needing 3.3 million of carryover fund balance, we would need roughly about 2.8, if my math was right on everything I did hurriedly today, from what all we did with the positions.
Down, 500,000.
About 523. And that's not, I'm sorry, the 523 is not just from the positions. It's basically the net effect of everything we've done so far, because we haven't really looked at carryover fund balance. You know, y'all just said that's what we're going to balance everything that we've been doing the whole time y'all been looking. You know, y'all been adding some, we added some revenue, we've taken down expenses. So the net right now of everything we've done is to reduce that use of fund balance by 500 and some thousand.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before we
Yes, sir.
dive into something?
Yes.
And I may be remembering this incorrectly. Were we not supposed to get new pages for Fund 25?
We're right here. That was the next thing. And Robert, make sure this
I
is,
withdraw my question very carefully.
this is the last other fund that y'all have not approved, and then we'll be done with the housekeeping. Make sure that's not what you have in your book. That's supposed to be the new one. It's not whole punch, but y'all just stick it on the whole punch. I'll get one of the items. Is this the name of it?
Yes.
Okay, for 25, tab 25.
Tab 16.
Tab 16.
Yeah.
Because y'all voted on all the other funds but that one, because we didn't have the right one in there.
Any questions on? Move to approve Fund 25.
And Mr. Thames, I'll send it to you.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Harden.
Walter, your mic.
Sorry. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden. Any other questions?
Mr. Thames, since you don't have to look at it, it actually went down from what you had in your book from 67,000 to 30,000. So it's 30,000 revenue
23,
and expenditures.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That passes 5-0. That's Fund 25. So we've done all the funds. And now we're down to, let's just quickly start with vacant positions. At this point, I believe we have discussed the payroll worksheet. So really we've gone over the vacant positions. In terms of new positions, we don't really have any in the budget, additional positions, correct, Mr. Burkett?
That is correct.
Okay. We've dealt with the health insurance, correct?
We discussed it, we didn't have a conclusion.
Okay.
We dealt with the
thought
5.5%
we-
increase for the,
Oh, the increase in health insurance?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
those are in your
I'm sorry.
new numbers.
I was
We
thinking
vote, yeah, we
retiree. I
voted on
apologize.
that, okay. Okay. Want to make sure I hadn't,
The
Yes.
new rates are in your new payroll worksheets.
okay, so let's get into Tier 1, Tier 2, and Mr. Burgett was really helpful to send out all this information. The more I read about this, the angrier I get, just in terms of how RSA and the legislature put municipalities in this position is unconscionable to me that we, and every municipality in the whole state is really in this situation. And I think, Robert, you summed it up very well. Let me see if I can find your email. You summed it up in terms of, you sent out the booklet, which was very helpful. I printed it and have been reviewing it, but trying to find your email. Does anyone have questions about the overall? I mean, I know we've been kind of reviewing it as we've gone along, but He has provided the cost. The Tier 2 conversion would be $130,014 just for this year alone. And then the unfunded pension liability for Tier 2 to receive Tier 1 benefits is $643,141.
But that's the number that's amortized over 15
Yeah,
years.
that's right, that's right.
Counselor Jones, that spreadsheet you're referencing, what date was that sent on? I don't see it.
This afternoon.
Did that just go, is it just to the finance committee?
Yeah, I sent it to this one.
I thought everybody had gotten this, so I can,
Let me go make some copies.
yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I
That
think
last
it's
email I
information that
sent.
everybody needs to be able to read and see.
Yeah, that
Take a
last-
few
You
minutes to
ever done them?
digest.
Can I take it, go across and make some copies real quick?
Yeah. So I'm trying to find the recap that and you sent out a list of, okay, here it is, the main points. So a Tier 1 employee can retire at any age with 25 years of service, and Tier 2 must work to age 62. Tier 2 employees contribute 1.5% less than Tier 1, but the monthly benefit in retirement is approximately 25% less. So that's huge, huge.
Or is Tier 1, I thought, I had down in my notes that Tier 1 could retire after 20 years. Is that not right? It's
25 years.
25.
Okay, so both Tier 1 and Tier 2 have 25, but they have.
Well, Tier 2 is not 25. Tier
Okay.
2 has to be,
10.
reach the age of 62 or
62.
56 for public safety.
Right.
Public safety.
Okay.
Yeah, the pendulum, I mean, Tier 1 benefits are wonderful, and they swung the pendulum so far for Tier 2, they really went too far on Tier 2 to be able to
Make it sustainable.
retain employees, keep employees satisfied, and have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And here's my question, because I made this statement to somebody tonight. At some point, is the state not going to have to address this?
That's what I think.
I would think that at some point, this is unsustainable.
Well, I mean,
It's
because
unsustainable.
When you look at the list of the people who have already acted on this, it's virtually every municipality in the state with not small, and
Not
then
every, but-
all the public boards that are doing it. I'm like, how can you have a program that
unfunded
everyone in your
mandate.
state is, yeah, right.
Well, if you just look at I sent out the sheet from 2007 to current. We've gone up, if you include the new factor, 53% on our pension costs in that period of time. And if we were to enact the Tier 2, and it grows at that same rate, I put a number out there, if it continues to grow at that rate, excluding any COLAs or new employees, our pension costs are going to be over $4 million a year. That's 20% of our salary. That's not sustainable. You can't do that. So, at some point, like there have happened in so many other states across the nation, there's going to have to be some type of intervention, because it's just not a sustainable number.
Well, no, and I mean, it's just, when you see the number of public entities that have come out basically saying, we're not going to do this, to me, that should be a big red flag in the state of Alabama.
Well, and also, one thing which the state legislature, what they're saying now is they passed this back in 2012, and they were looking at the state retirement system. They weren't looking at the municipalities and the counties. But they passed it without proper language, so it affected everybody in RSA. And now they're offering, the state legislature has passed another bill offering the municipalities and the counties and the other units to go back to Tier 1 benefits if they choose to and if they pay for it. But the state's not offering it to their employees. They're staying with Tier 2.
Really?
Which is that's the list of all the places that have decided to go back to.
Yes, ma'am. There's about 300, they call them units. There's about 300 units in RSA out of 800 that have elected to go to the Tier 1 benefits.
And when you compare us to other cities, I mean, I've looked this, our unfunded pension liability is 10 million more than Vestavia and 6 million more than Mountain Brook. So ours is so much larger. And so,
And the reason for that, and trying, digging into this, Homewood has 360 full-time, when this report was done, 360 full-time employees, 244 are Tier 1. We have 215 retired Tier 1 employees. That is what is causing our unfunded pension liability to be high, because we almost have as many retired employees as we do working Tier 1 employees. And your current funding is what, pays your benefits going forward, and the investments that the state makes on your money. But we have a very high number of retired Tier 1 employees compared to other places.
And on one other thing too, as far as positions for next year, like, we have 552 positions budgeted. Now that does include 178 part-time, but like Mountain Brook only has 262 positions budgeted for next year, and Vestavia has 339. So we're
But they
still.
also outsource everything.
Yeah,
Vestavia outsources everything.
Vestavia outsourced 911, garage,
Yeah, garbage. Yeah,
most of the public works, traffic. They don't even have 911.
yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to compare. It is, it's apples and
But I know, but
oranges.
we get compared to Vestavia on everything.
Well, I know.
Because we're
but, I mean,
proximity.
But again, we have a 911 center. We have a garbage pickup that we do by our city. So it's very different.
Our city operates differently.
It does.
It operates differently.
okay, well, that's the information that we have, and I have pretty much been pretty clear with what my thoughts are, and they are I would prefer that we delay this till the mid-year review, but I believe my opinion on that is probably in the minority, which is fine, but that's my job to be worried about our finances. But I know, I've been definitely here before. But, I would feel better if we did that, but, I mean, I know, I understand all sides of this, but I just want to make sure everyone's with the understanding that if we move forward with this, we're going to have to make some really tough financial decisions in the future as it relates to how we're running departments and how we look at capital expenditures and how we look at general operating expenditures moving forward. So I'm just saying this because I love Homewood and I want us to be in the best position possible, but I'm worried about this. That's just kind of where I am based on the long-term cost, because a lot of this is unknown cost, and that's what worries me more than anything, is just not knowing where we're going to be during that 15-year. I mean, we're
Mr.
basically
Chairman?
making a big decision here.
Has anybody had any conversation with David Faulkner or Jabba Wagner's office, or anybody like that, to say, we can't be the only ones that are worried about this, having to deal with this, has anybody had any discussion with the state, with the legislature, to see if they're doing anything to rectify this? And I know the state's broke too, and that's part of the problem,
Well, the only discussion I've had is with the league director, Greg Cochran, and he basically says that this is a priority at the state level to help municipalities as much as possible. So it's a top priority for them, but they're not making a lot of progress right now. They're working through it, but it's a bigger issue and it's going to take some time to work through. But I've not spoken specifically to Representative Faulkner or anything like that.
Well, do you think, from your discussions with the director of the League of Municipalities, does he feel like the state is going to come through with some sort of recorrection? Because, listen, it's exactly what you said, Robert. They overcorrected for something without considering all the ramifications that it was going to have across the board. They were trying to fix one problem for themselves and they created a bunch of problems for everybody else. So from your, I mean, is that something that we should, I mean, I know we can't say for sure, but I mean, I feel like the state's gonna have to do something to fix this.
Well, he just indicated that, I mean, it is one of their top legislative priorities, and that he's going to do everything he can because he knows the long-term effects. So he didn't say definitively, yes, the state's going to do something, but he's going to do everything in his power to help municipalities because this is a major issue for everybody. So it's something everyone's dealing with. So his phone is ringing off the hook, and he understands that there aren't many other issues that have been as big as this. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. There has to be some action on it. I mean, nobody can predict, but all the municipalities, all of the people that are affected by this, the impact, there has to be some consideration of it, and you would think it's going to be soon. But we can't bank on that. We just can't, so.
Counselor Jones, sorry, were you finished?
Yeah, Mr. Walton.
I was just going to add to the discussion, one thing that I don't think we've really looked at is if we stay in the tier 2, keeping the tier 2 positions and the impact that it has on obviously those that are sitting in the audience, they have a lot of concern about it, is you've got the training issues that are going to occur, because what we'll do is we say tier 2, all these cities that are tier 1 will start poaching our talent. The second part of that is the retention issues. So as they start poaching our talent, we then have to turn around and train new people, which has an adverse effect on our services. And third, by having those frontline employees doing the work that they're doing at a later age, I think that's going to drive more workman's comp type claims, more injuries. So those are also factors that are not, listed on this sheet that need to be taken into consideration of staying at tier 2 or keeping the tier 2s.
And I have an additional addition if you're okay with me saying it. I mean, I was thinking, are you done?
I'm done.
Yours? Okay.
Yeah,
I had one addition to your comments.
Yeah, because Mrs. Smith made those points before, but with that
I've been absent.
reiterated.
Sorry.
No, that's
But
no
it's
problem.
good.
That's, you were,
It's good to
no
reinforce.
problem. Okay, what was your additional?
The other thing is that tier 2 employees do not have.
I promise I didn't cause anything to occur.
The other thing that hasn't really been mentioned is the fact that tier 2 employees do not get to convert sick time. That is something that they're
Correct.
disallowed from doing. So my theory is, and I could be completely wrong, but if I have sick time and I can't convert it when I retire, I'm going to take my sick time. And what
Yeah.
that's going to do is drive up overtime, because they're going to have find people to cover all those positions where the guys are taking their sick time, which they are legally allowed to do and should if they're not able to convert it when they retire. So I think that's something we haven't really discussed, but it could definitely affect overtime numbers as well.
Well, I think overall, like you alluded to, Councilor Jones, we fundamentally have to take a look at how we're running the city. If we make this decision strategically long-term, a future administration may have to say, or the next administration may have to say, look, we're going to have to start outsourcing some functions because of this liability that's on our payroll. Now, the liability won't go away for everybody, but it'll help us long-term. So we may have to shift how we're doing things.
Yeah, I agree. Were there any comments, I guess, from our finance director?
Well, as we have discussed, the cost of this pension is direct related to our salary and wages expense. That's the only number that drives it. And if we want to provide this benefit to the tier 2 employees, then we're going to have to find a way to control our salary and wages. We probably need to look at our premiums that we're giving employees. Does every premium, now there's certain premiums that you're required by personnel board, but there's also other premiums that are at the discretion of the department head and appointing authority. So we probably need to look at our premiums to see if they're all, and they can be from 5 to 15%. 15% of your salary is a pretty large increase. So that would be one thing we need to look at. Let each department head look at their premiums to see if they can reduce expenses. We're going to have to control the number of employees. We're not going to be able to add a large number of employees until we know that our revenue has recovered and is sustainable going forward. And really the only other thing that can affect the general fund is just controlling our expenses. Just try to be very diligent on anything that is not absolutely necessary in our general fund under the expense to have the additional revenue to pay for the RSA. And we still got the health insurance that we're talking about for the retirees, which would be also a general fund expense. So
Got it, okay.
Can I make, I'm just assistant finance director, but can I make a comment?
Just the assistant?
I was going to you next.
Okay, sorry. I have worked as a finance director in the past, so maybe for that, y'all
Yeah,
indulge me.
yes, you have.
Okay, so let me just reiterate, I agree with everything that Robert Burgett just said. And again, I'm going on record as saying that I'm definitely not anti-employee, and I definitely agree with Ms. Smith that they overcompensated on the tier 2. And I think that the tier 1 is almost too good, and I'm glad I'm a tier 1, but as, you know, compared to a lot of people, the way it's structured gets to take more out than they put in, and so sometimes that's why it's not self-sustaining, because the benefits are so good, because it's a benefit plan instead of a contribution plan. It's based on your years of service. And I definitely agree that the tier 2 has a lot of issues, again, that they overcompensated for. But as the person that I feel like knows Homewood finances like the back of my hand, I'm worried about, I know it's going to be a very complicated issue. I know I was hoping that we would wait till the mid-year review, and I understand the problems about losing people that we've trained. But I was afraid that we weren't going to have time to study all the nuances of the finance before then. But if we, and I understand, go ahead and passing it if y'all decide to, because of not losing staff. But I would just even say maybe we even go back and look at some of the positions that we've funded for this budget, even January, May, and maybe consider taking them all out and seeing it. Because bottom line is, because such a small pension move in our factor causes such a big, large annual expense in the general fund, that's what worries me. That's the reason in 2011 we had to go ahead and implement Act 676, which now the cities that are doing this are doing. We had to go and pass that 2.5 on to the employee, because we couldn't absorb that pension cost that year without tapping into our reserves. Well, you know, if you have to tap into your reserves to cover pension costs for the annual year, you can only do that for so long, and then you don't have any more reserves. So I just would say again that we have to really look at and maybe even think outside the box of, can we you know, maybe do something with our purchasing where departments pull together for some type of centralized purchasing with common supplies instead of buying, you know, just, we're going to have to really tighten up and look. And I agree with premiums. Premiums aren't a God-given right, that they're by the appointing authority's discretion, and maybe we need to look at those. We can't give everything, and I believe that that's something that the tier 2 people, especially, you know, can't work as long as that they have them working because they've overcompensated. But I'm really worried about the sustainability, especially if the state doesn't intervene, because everybody wants their pension to be there.
Yeah, and I get both sides of the argument, but I'm so concerned. I mean, I think our employees in all the departments, not just in fire and police, but in Berkeley's department and finance and everywhere, our employees are what drives the city. And if we start losing experienced people who can go somewhere else, even if it's for less money because the benefits are better, and we end up spending tons of money on training that then goes away and walks out the door for us, I just think that's not sustainable either. I mean, I think you've got negatives on both sides. So, but I'm with you on, we really need to take a hard look at how we do things. And I think centralized purchasing is a great idea, because when I look at invoices occasionally, I think, why do we have so many, you know, exterminating companies? And also, I know that Andy has mentioned this before, but looking at our fleet.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. I think that's one of the things that if we're going to be a city that's pro-employee and employee first, we've really got everything has to be on the table. So let's take, and I would like to know, you know, how much is each vehicle driven per year? Is that vehicle really needed? We can't do that right now based on the way we do our gas cards, but I think each vehicle should have its own gas card registered to that vehicle. So if you drive that vehicle, you punch in the code for that car, and you know this vehicle, based on the gas card, has been driven 50 miles, you know, a month this year. That's probably a vehicle not needed. Now, I know it's a small city. It's not like working for a large corporation and being all over the place, but fleet's a big expense. The maintenance of that fleet's a big expense. So I think we probably need to form a committee as a whole to work with the new mayoral administration to review these things and just put everything on the table.
I agree with you, and I was going to suggest that get the department heads, I can tell you right now, they have an opinion, and, because I've heard some of them, and get the department heads and let them be a part of this discussion, because they see things maybe a little different, and let them tell us, here's what we think is best for our employees, because is the retirement the most important thing to them? I'd let them tell us, and get, before we go past this, it is a huge thing for us. It's a big liability, and so I would like some input from our department heads. And I know Berkeley doesn't have time for it, but the rest of them would probably have time for he's not even paying attention. But I'd like to, get some input from them before we pass something without their saying, God, I wish y'all hadn't have done that. We'd rather have X. So I think a committee, before we go do this, with their input, because they're the ones who are dealing with the employees, they're the ones having to hire new people. I think they need to tell us what they want.
I want to be clear.
I disagree with that. I would say I'm on board with Councilor Gwaltney and Councilor Smith. I think we do pass, and then we form a committee, and we
Carve out
look
those
at, we go
expenses.
through, together with each department, and make the changes there. But I think, in my mind, it's pressing that we pass this now due to employee retention and the folks that we've spent tens of thousands of dollars training per employee. So I agree with that as far as a holistic look and a centralized look, but after we pass, is my opinion.
I would second that as well. This is Andrew Wolverton.
I think he said I second that.
He said I second
Mrs.
that.
Andrus.
No,
that was
Mr.
Andrew.
Thames, but it might be some
It was
random
Andrew.
person on the thing.
It was Andrew.
A Zoom bomb.
It was Andrew.
Okay. I'll
Yeah, I
give
got
Mr. Wyatt.
Thank you. And I'll agree, generally with everything that's been said. I mean, the budget is a pie. There's only so much of it. Every time you expand one thing, you reduce another thing. And so it's about priorities, in my mind. I mean, that to me is what budgeting is about. It's about priorities and what you put in front of each other. And as I understand it, at least from most of the department heads that I've talked to, this is the priority. And if it is, that's great. That's the priority. Because I think the employee retention and attracting good employees is of vital importance. I think we also have to balance that with fiscal responsibility of the city over the long term, both short term and long term. And yeah, I mean, these numbers scare me, and I think they scare everybody. And I think everyone recognizes this balancing act that we've got to do. And I agree that the state absolutely should come in and fix this. And I even agree that they probably will, but it certainly wouldn't be the first time that the state has disappointed me.
We've been waiting on the lid. We've been waiting on the lid bill, hadn't we?
when I'm counting on them to do something. So I'm hesitant to assume that that's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we have to do what we're talking about, right? We have to find, because again, it's a pie. We have to find other places and make other choices that are lower, that we're essentially assigning lower priorities. And if that's what we need to do, then that's fine, and we need to go about doing it, because whatever money there is, there is. And, the idea of an annual pension cost of $4+ million a year is a problem. I mean, it's unsustainable. I think we can all agree with that. Right. So we've got to, if the state doesn't come back in and fix that problem, we got to find another way to fix it. This isn't about do we have to do something or do we not. This is about how do we do what we have to do. And I think we can do that. And like I said, if I'm correct that this is the top priority from the position of the department heads, then it's the top priority, and then we'll figure out how to find it, how to make it work. But we'll have to do that.
I think what Jennifer said, and John's suggestion, I think this isn't a matter of just saying it and not do it.
Correct.
It is as soon as this is done and we do it, we gotta form a committee, we gotta start talking about this, we gotta figure out ways to make it work.
And maybe some of that is legislative outreach. I mean, maybe we do gather with, David and Jabbo and,
I don't disagree with you. I think
yeah.
that's got to be part
Yeah.
of it. But I think we have to, at the same time, be going ahead and doing what we've got to do
Yeah,
on our end.
agree.
Because we don't know if they're ever going to do,
That's right.
we don't have control over what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We can push, we have pushed on stuff before, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to have to do what we've got to do. And if they come in and save us, then they come in and save us, and we make whatever adjustments we need to. But we got to do what we got to do on the front end.
Well, and that means preparing for negative consequences. That's really what we're talking about here. I mean,
That's exactly right.
that committee and that addresses this however you guys deem appropriate, preparing for negative consequences, maybe not as far sweeping and maybe not long-term, heaven forbid, but nonetheless, preparing mentally, everybody understanding, publicly, dealing with that.
And I agree with particularly what Mr. Waltney said. I think there are areas where there are savings that can be had that we just haven't focused on in the past. And I think there are some areas that are maybe not low-hanging fruit, but at least not high-hanging fruit either, somewhere in the middle that we can pick off that will make a difference. And, pick those off and then hit the hard stuff as well and see where we stand.
Okay, Mr. McCluskey, did you have anything?
No, I absolutely agree. I think in the conversations that I've had, we do know that this is a top priority, but I think they also understand that we're going to have to make some tough decisions moving forward. So, I mean, I would, I'm not on the committee, of course, but this will be before us.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so everybody has shared their thoughts, and let me just give let me give you this is more of a philosophy kind of situation I want to share with everybody. We're going to have the motion. Someone's going to make the motion to make the conversion now. And I want to be clear that I'm for the conversion, but I'm for it at mid-year, okay? So, but I'm not going to vote for this. I've made that clear. But I'm going to vote for the budget. Now, over the years, Mr. McCluskey can remember, I've had finance members that didn't vote on one particular issue and then decided that they were, because that issue didn't go their way, they were not going to vote for the budget. Do you remember that? Very frustrating. I'm going to vote for the budget. I'm just, because we've worked too hard on this budget. So I just want to make that clear that if I don't vote for it, it's not because I'm not for the whole budget. This is just one issue that I just wanted to delay until we had the mid-year review because I've already shared all my thoughts on that. So that's kind of where we are. So is there a motion to proceed?
I would make a motion to pass the Tier 2 conversion this year.
Second. Okay. Tier 2 conversion, starting, yeah, that's the correct language. The city would take over expenditures and Tier 2 conversion to Tier 1, and that would be beginning of the fiscal year.
October 21.
October
2020.
2020, okay. Okay, that's been moved by Mrs. Smith. It's been seconded, I believe, by Mr. Higginbotham. Okay, we've all had good discussion on this, except Mr. Thames. Oh, yeah, he said he agreed with you. Okay.
That was Andrew Wolverton.
Oh, that was Wolverton. Okay, sorry, that was Wolverton.
Yes, that was me.
Okay, good.
I made it clear where I stood the other night.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed by the same sign. Aye. So that'd be 4-1. Did I get you, Mr. Thames, as an aye on the front end?
Yes, I'm an aye.
Okay. All right, 4-1, that passes. So we will recommend that'll be part of our overall recommendation as part of the budget. So
We're going to start calling you Dr. Andy.
Still 15.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Okay, so the next, yeah, thank you. Okay, so that passes. The next item is, I guess we pretty much have a budget that does not have any type of COLA, unfortunately. I don't think we can put that in there this year, but, so we just, unless anyone has any comments about that.
Well, I think that's important. I've heard more than one department head talk about that as important, to get us to a point where we've got competitive salaries.
Okay.
And that's what concerned me about the Tier 2 to Tier 1, is it's affecting us continuing to get competitive salaries.
Okay. So noted. Okay. Mr. Burgett, we do need to vote on, vote on all merits. Is that correct? We just need to acknowledge that
Approve the merit
we
test.
vote for all recommended merit increases as indicated within the budget. That's 2 merits, total 280.
I'll have to get you a new number now.
Okay, get a new one. Get a new one.
It's going,
Okay.
yeah, I'll have to change based on, but you can just approve the merits
Pending the total that we get from you on Monday.
because it's
Okay.
going to change based on all the changes we made to the payroll, if y'all see anything else.
I move approval of the merit. Okay. Moved by Mr. Higginbotham and seconded by Mrs. Smith. And just to make sure everyone's clear about that, I mean, we're, just because we don't have a COLA doesn't mean that people are not getting increases this year through merit. So, we are funding those and they're substantial based on our payroll. So, we are not just ignoring any type of increases. So that's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by the same sign? Okay, 5-0. Okay, what is our next item that we need to?
We all gonna do something about retiree insurance to see if we needed to, are y'all gonna drop on that or y'all gonna look at that?
Retiree insurance, okay. Okay, someone have a report on that?
Well, we had discussed it at the last meeting, and there were different options that were presented. Based on the fact that we have employees, department heads that have made comments about employees that would like to retire but have not because they can't afford the retiree insurance. There was recommendations that we look at providing an additional payment to retiree employees to be able to afford the retiree insurance.
Correct.
Recommendations were a stipend. Recommendations were that we pay the current city portion for all retiree employees. Some are being paid at the rate of when they retired many years back.
I sent y'all that, did y'all get that window, so to speak, that resolution window? I sent y'all, okay.
We also, the recommendation was made that the city reduce service time for a retiree to 10 years. Currently, the city resolution calls for 15 years of service, but RSA and SEIB require 10. So we can come in line with their guidelines and possibly have employees retire quicker. I think the benefit is, the benefit to the city is to to have a provision for some of the older long-term employees to be able to take retirement, be able to afford the health insurance, which would have a reduction in our salaries. So we may be spending more on retiree benefits. We're paying for 7 retirees now out of the basically 20 that we have. So it's not a large expense at all to the city, but I think there would be some savings. Every time you save on your salaries, you save on your workers' comp, you save on your retiree,
And your pension.
retirement, your pension. So there are ways that we need to look at about trying to facilitate the long-term employees towards retirement.
What did RSA change? Didn't they say something?
Okay, well,
They said something.
Mr.
I was told there was
Burgett,
an age change, but there wasn't.
is there an option that you favor, that you feel like would be the best option for us among all the ones that you have mentioned, or everything? What are your, thoughts just to make sure that we are in the
Well,
best
I would
position.
definitely favor reducing the city's length of service to 10 years. And we could look at, again, there's two ways to look at continue to pay the current portion of the city's insurance that we're paying now for any retiree, that would be a good benefit to the retired employees. The other option would be just look at providing a stipend, an additional payment in the amount for single and in the amount for family coverage. If we pay the current rate and we continue to do that, that's going to be an increasing cost going forward as our health insurance increases. If we pay a stipend, we know that that's a fixed rate going forward for however many years that the employee is on our retirement. That's really the benefit of a stipend, is having a fixed rate. The benefit to the employee of us paying our current contribution is that they will receive more benefit from the city, but the cost of the city could escalate in years to come as the insurance increases. Those seem to be our two problems: health insurance and pension.
Okay. Well,
Mr. Jones?
yes.
Just wanted to ask Mr. Burgett a question. Do we have a count of how many employees we could expect to go ahead and retire in the event we did pass some sort of option, a stipend, or what have you?
I have a good estimate. The police provided me with some numbers. Fire department has provided me with some numbers. I think Berkeley said he had several that were, I would say that based on the numbers that I had, that there would be 15 people that would be effective immediately in all the departments.
Meaning they retire, they would immediately retire?
I would say that they would favorably choose retirement over working, since their health insurance would become affordable, more affordable to them.
Do you have the new rates for that?
Yeah, I have them here.
We just got the new rates for what, because like say, on January 1st, like for family, if you're an active employee, it's going to go up from $1,206 total to $1,272, which is, and so the city's budgeted to pick that up for the active employee. So of the $1,272, the city's new cost is going to be $897. So if somebody retires and y'all say, okay, reduce it to 10 years and you'll pay the city part, that's $897, but we need to see what because see, the premium escalates when you're no longer an active worker.
Yeah, okay.
So what's the new premium going to be?
Retiree premium,
for
family coverage. There's so many different charts here. With
dental, 'cause we have dental.
with dental, okay, it's going to be. It's so small I can't see it. Retiree, Medicare, dependent with dental, 1928.
So see, if it's 1928, and then the city is going to pay $897, that'd have the employee paying $1,000 a month for insurance.
So that's the option if we were to choose pay the
Current city
Insurance
contribution.
But I think sometimes right now, based on what it is, especially with some of them that retired a while ago, they're having to pay like $1,500 and $1,800, but $1,000 may be still too high. I don't know what Berkeley was the one working on a lot of the numbers themselves.
15 ain't retiring on 1,000, I'm going to tell you. I mean, my point I go back to.
Come on up here if you want to talk.
My point that we discussed earlier is looking at, and again, I mean, it's kind of like, for you guys, nothing against the tier 2 folks, but for those of us that are getting their retirement age, this is important. Just like theirs is trying to get into tier 1. For a lot of people, it's the retirement thing. My people can't afford $1,000 a month. As I told you the other night, there's no way. I mean, they have to stay working. That's the bottom line. My thing was to look at figuring out a way to try to cap it. Where
Right.
if it's $500 for you and your spouse and $250 for single, and looking at what that looks like. And I agree, I
The
mean,
expense to the employee?
yes,
Okay.
that they would pay $500 for them and their
family,
spouse when they retire.
And $250 for a single.
And $250 for single, like that, something of that magnitude. I mean, if it stays at 7, 8, 9,
Chief and them may have some, I don't. My folks can't do that.
We probably need to give them let's get the rates for what, the problem where they get you is they jack the rates up for retired if they would just leave them where the current, but they don't.
Yeah.
What are the rates? You said that for because we have dental, so we have to have the dental option. So for retiree family is, what'd you say it was?
1928.
So that's 1928, and what is it for a single retiree?
Retiree, 1078.
And then there are, not to complicate, we can get to you later, then there's other premium, like if you're family, but your wife's Medicare eligible, it's a little bit less than
Yeah.
that. So they have, it depends on if your spouse is 65 or not.
That's right.
But, so the main ones are 1928 for regular, both not Medicare, and then 1078 for single.
Single with dental.
So the thing is, like, if Berkeley says, okay, we're gonna pay, the employee's only gonna pay $500, then the city's gonna have to pay the 1428. So we'll just calculate that cost, because for an active employee, they're only paying $897. And I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, I'm just
I'm not
telling you the
neither.
numbers.
I'm just saying, for looking at this thing through the scope that we're trying to do, look, it's just like the tier 2, tier 1 thing. I mean, this thing, we've got to sit down as a whole, as a group, and look at the direction of where the city's gonna go. I mean, this isn't Melody and Robert and I have had this discussion, that this isn't an easy fix for anybody, for you guys, for the city, for the employees. But I mean, it's, the thing I would tell you, now I know over time it would catch up. But if you take 15 employees, probably for 5 to 7 years, those 15 that retire and the ones that may fill those positions, the difference in the salaries and the steps is going to pay the amount of money that's required to pay for that insurance thing.
Correct.
Now my proposal on this is that instead of having people working more years later on, that this would give them the opportunity to retire, so it kind of continues to kind of fulfill itself through the difference in salaries of being topped out for 15, 20 years, as compared to somebody that may come in at a step 6, and it's 4 years before they get to that top step. That's what you hope for in that situation, that it gets that opportunity to allow that person the opportunity to retire at 60 instead of 65.
And that's one, we looked several years ago, when we had the increased pension costs, about doing a early buyout, because we were so top heavy. I think it was if we paid so many $1 million for buyout, we were gonna be back in the same position like within 9 years, because the person on board steps. And I know we have minimum staffing, get fired and all that, but if we go with something like this is some of that committee, or looking we really need to look and see, when people take this for the insurance, do we automatically have to fill that position back immediately? Is that you see what I'm saying? That's the kind of stuff, if we're gonna do the tier 1 conversion, tier 2, and then start paying extra for this, we have to look at every position to see if we have to, maybe we do have to, but we need to have that, to me, so that we don't get in this situation again 10 years down the road.
In Berkeley, does reducing the years of service, does that help in any way with your folks?
Not as much probably not as much as it would,
See, that 10 years of service,
Yeah.
they still have to be age 60.
Yeah.
They have to reach age 60 for the 10 year of service to
I
apply.
thought it was 50.
No, 10 year service, you have to be
10 years,
60.
60.
You talking about for retire?
Retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing would not really affect.
No, it's not gonna really affect my folks. Yeah. That's about it.
15 years service.
I've got some that would, like I said, I've got a few that would go now that are on up in age, but they can't afford, they can't live off $1,700 a month.
Reducing it to 10 years.
Yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell where it's at. It's not an easy thing, and I'm not, it may be one of those things that, we continue the discussion, but again, kind of like the tier 2, for a lot of folks that are at retirement age, or some of us that are, below 10 years, this begins to be something that you look at and all. And it's a huge factor, for me, and, 2 of my departments, it's a little, they look at it a little bit differently. because of, you know, the amount of money they make. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And they understand that going in, don't get me wrong. My thing was just be able to help them as much as we can, you know, when they get to that point that they can retire. And so, again, you know, I understand, look, been doing this a long time. This is not an easy thing, but it's just something that I think, to me, over time, I believe with the amount of people that it could affect, that could go out, that are at the top, and, you know, the ones that are coming up, I believe we can stay where it almost pays for itself, so to speak, in a way. Now, I know eventually it may catch, and that's fine, but I think that comes back to us as a whole, department heads looking and seeing, you know, how we're doing things moving forward.
And if you look on page, if you look on tab 3 on the general fund, I don't know, we didn't really talk about that line item when y'all were going through appropriations, but the retiree health insurance is a budgeted expense. Like Robert was saying, that we're paying for 7. This is for what the city pays. The other people, on page 8 of tab 3, which is where the appropriations are, if you look down, retiree insurance is under credit card fees. It's 5731110. You can see the history of what we've spent, and you see because health insurance has gone up. You see, like in 16-17, it was 37,000 actual city cost. This has none of what they pay in it. This is strictly what we pay. 60,000 for 17-18, 54,000. You see, we budgeted 70,000 this year, and right now through June we were at 40,000. So if y'all do something, that's going to affect. That's why I was just letting you know. This is where the line item is, where we budget the expense that we're projecting.
I think the other part of that is, you know, once a person gets 65, then of course they, you know, at that point they're Medicare eligible, so you drop it. You know, yeah. So.
And so the 60,000 that's in the budget, that is for those 7 employees that were currently.
Well, that's just an estimate that we do based on history, because we don't know who, we're hoping some people
don't know who.
retire that'll still
Retire.
pick it up, because we can't lose one more, right, Robert?
Right, yeah, we're at that
Well,
line.
no, they have
done away with
they
that.
have
Okay.
yeah, done away with the 5% retirement rule.
Oh, wait, so
Like,
we don't have to worry about that anymore?
No. They're trying to get away from having the preferred.
They don't want
premium,
preferred rates, period.
They don't want preferred rates, period. That's what they're trying to get away from.
Now we're not even gonna, if we make the wellness discount, that's not gonna help us get the preferred. We're not gonna get the discount anymore. We have to do the wellness just to keep preferred.
Yeah, just to keep.
You're not even getting a discount anymore.
You're not getting a
Okay.
discount. It's
We're
just to
just
keep
doing
it
it
now.
to keep
It's
where we are.
required. Yeah.
I want a healthcare consultant to tell me how the heck these healthcare companies haven't just killed it this year and aren't giving us a refund.
Yeah.
Where is the refund that we should be getting from Blue Cross and Blue Shield and all the healthcare
That's in
companies?
somebody's pockets in their
Yeah, I was
job.
I mean, it's unbelievable. If you,
Okay.
Well, it's just, I mean, my thing was, I mean, and you know, if you want to, you know, if we want to take and let Mel and Robert, you know, look at some numbers and see if you had 15 to go based upon what I know I'm going to have, and both the chiefs are going to have, I just, to me, this one to me is just as important as the tier 2, because we all have people that are into this position, and, you know, eventually, you know, the other ones will get to that same point. But I just, you know, it's, when you got people that's been here 20 years and they've been topped out forever, and, you know, they're at an age that they really would love to go, you know, at some point, it is, if we can do something, it would be great, as I reckon at the end of the day is my point.
Yes, hold on 1 second, let's trigger my, go ahead.
Have you worked out the numbers? Like, have you put it to, if we were to choose the option of paying the, not the old rate, but the current
Insurance
city
rate.
contribution
I've-
versus like a stipend?
I've looked at them, but I haven't worked them out because I don't know what the number of employees to work with is. I mean, I know that if we, you know, if 20 employees and whether we gave a, you know, cap, and I'm sorry, we talked about that, but when you said the cap, I didn't realize you were saying for the employee. I thought you
Yeah,
were saying
that's
city
cap for the
expense.
employee.
I had
The cap
that
was-
backwards.
the cap
so-
was for the employee.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I
So
just
that
had it
would-
backwards
that
in
would
my
then-
mind.
And it's also important, when we worked it out before about, I think at one time we looked at offering a year's salary if you could retire. We looked at it like, but nobody could not hold that position they had to immediately refill, so that's, we were back it would
Right,
basically pay
didn't
for
help.
itself for 9 years, then we were back to the same position. So it also was like, who's gonna go probably, and can they go any time at all without hiring that position back, or is they immediately gonna have to hire it back at a lower step?
And
A lot of factors go into that.
And also, with Berkeley's department, he gets a bigger benefit because he's not as layered as the fire department is. When you retire a person that has a rank in the fire department, they have every people stepping up. So they might get a benefit of not being topped out for 3 to 5 years.
Where his is
Where
longer.
Berkeley might get 8 to 9 years.
Right.
Because the fire department's laddered, the police department's laddered with rank.
Right. Well, is there a way for us to get some numbers? Just, I know it's just going to be estimates because we can't predict how
Yep.
many people this is going to affect. But
We
could we
can-
get a comparison, an estimate comparison so that we could?
Yes. They provided the information, I just didn't have time to put it all together.
Yeah, oh, I completely understand. I
Okay, hold
completely
on, hold on a second. Mr. Higginbotham has been waiting, patiently waiting.
Well, I'm rarely patient, but yeah, I was waiting.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've just had so many even for a budget hearing, I've had so many different numbers thrown at me tonight. I had a couple questions because I want to make sure I heard numbers and understood them. So at what age would people be retiring to start getting this healthcare benefits? Would it be 60? Is that what I heard, or?
No, that's it. Here's the thing, most people now, and is Tim and Nick here? I think one thing that Tim and Nick, I think people are working longer now than, say, they were 20 years ago. You got a lot of people that will get 25 in and they retire. But insurance, again, wasn't that cost. You've got more people working, I would think Tim and Nick both do, into their mid to late 50s.
But the window right now says you have to be 50
Yes.
to 65.
That's correct.
So you can't, the city will not start contributing before age 50, and you
That's
have to
right.
do 15 years of service. So, but Robert was saying 10 will let you retire under RSA, but you have to be age 60. But that, you wouldn't want to bump that up from 50 to 60, because a lot of us tier 1 that everybody's wanting to go to could retire at 54, 53. So that's why the city made it 50, because that helps the people that have made the 25 years of service. So that's why they said 50 to 65, because some people can retire at 50 with 25 years of service. You retire at 60 with 10 years of service.
And I'm not suggesting we change that, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
I was
understand the
thinking
numbers.
that was the reason why.
And so, the other question I had, and it may not be a question we can answer, but it's something Berkeley said in passing, and so at 65, you can get you have Medicare. Are we seeing people who are, retirees who are on our insurance terminating service at 65? Is that what we typically see, or do they keep it as a
They
supplemental
usually
kind?
do. Some keep it as a supplement, but it's all their cost then. The city's cost goes away.
So ours goes at 65.
They're
So there's only a window of time that we're.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's one of the
Okay.
reasons why we cap it, because when everybody's talking about the pension liability, if you look at our audited statements, there's a thing called OPEB liability, that's other post-employment benefits. And that's what I told you the other night, whenever you change this, that is gonna affect the liability that goes on our balance sheet, because, and that's one of the ways that ours has been reduced somewhat. Was it 1.5 million or something like that? Because it's a 15-year window at max the city's gonna pay. But, so just know that, that is something that we do, will affect the liability on our balance sheet. It's a long-term liability, but it is directly related to what the benefits are paying.
But I
A
think
promise to pay
answer-
their insurance.
To answer your question is, most of the time, most people may not be on it probably 5 years, 6 years, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's not like they're gonna be on it 20 years, the majority of them. Now, don't get me wrong, some people may have that luxury, to be able to retire after 25, at 53, 54.
But most of the time, the earliest you can retire, even 25 is 45 is pretty
Yeah.
young.
So,
45,
you just
54
don't, we
is
don't see
average.
that, I know in my time, I don't see that anymore like they used to back in probably 70s, 80s, and early mid-90s. Most folks now, it's 55, 57, 58 years of age. Well, then, you're going to carry them 6, 7 years, and then they're off, So that was kind of for me, it was one of those, because I've got several folks that, I've got one that's 61 and one that's 62. Don't get me wrong, they'd love to go, but they just can't do it, and they understand. It's not a thing, I'm just saying, I think, just like the tier 2 thing, it's an important aspect of where we're trying to get to. And so that was kind of my position on it, was to ask you guys to look at a cap for the employee that is affordable for them, that, you know, and like I said, I still believe that in the difference, even though I know Nick and Tim both have people that'll fall in, that it may only be 2 or 3 years. Well, I've got some when mine go, it's gonna be 7, 8 years. And, you know, my tiered structure, but, you know, even with theirs, as it goes down, there's a bigger gap. You know, they may go from you know, if you're going from a 15 to a 20, that's 4 or 5 years. So that was my whole thing in a nutshell, is to look at it, to see, you know, to be able to help those that have the opportunity to get out, to be able to do it. And, you know, I mean, most of these folks have put 30-plus years in with the city. I mean, I know mine has, and I believe Nick.
Okay, the chief,
Yeah, I would just say that I have to agree. Unbelievably, I think I agree with everything that Berkeley just said. But,
wow.
I'm putting that in the record.
And he and I have talked about this at length. Myself and Chief Hill have talked about it as well. And I remember the last time that we had a mass retirement of any sort in the police department was probably 1993, and the reason we had that was because of something that we're talking about tonight, that the council at that time passed and kept these retirees on an insurance plan where it cost them substantially less than it would have cost them under normal circumstances or normal times of people just retiring one at a time, so to speak. So in 1993, they did something, the council did something like this, and a bunch of police officers retired. And probably firefighters too. I don't know if Nick was here at that time. I think he was. But so I have to agree with Berkeley. I mean, I think that's the way to incentivize people that probably need to think about retiring, but can't because they can't afford to pay $1,000 or $1,100 a month out of their retirement check, which is obviously going to be less than what they're accustomed to making anyway. So I think Berkeley's onto something. I think that perhaps the committee does need to consider a cap in the neighborhood of what Berkeley was suggesting, to make it attractive, to make it an incentive for these employees that are in that situation. I've got several in my department that could retire and could take advantage of something like that, and it might be the thing that prompts them to go ahead and decide to retire. I don't think, as your chief of police, I don't want necessarily a police officer here with 40, 45 years experience. I don't think that's an ideal situation. Unfortunately, we've had situations in the past where we've had police officers that have done 40 years, maybe 40 plus. And one of the reasons that they did that and had such a prolonged career was because they couldn't afford to retire and take up this cost of insurance, their insurance increasing so dramatically. So also, though, to Ms. Salter's point about the buyout that was suggested or maybe talked about a year or two ago, I think that's another incentive that we might need to consider at some point, because I do have some employees as well that this incentive that we're talking about tonight would not apply to them because perhaps they're on their spouse's insurance plan and they're not taking advantage of the city's insurance plan, and offering this sort of incentive doesn't really apply to them. But if we offered something else, like Ms. Salter spoke of, it might prompt them to retire as well. You might consider, as some municipalities or agencies do, paying them for a portion of their sick time, which we do not currently do. The Personnel Board says that we can do that. We can pay an employee up to half of their sick time, but the current policy is that we don't.
I think it's capped though at 480. They get half of that, which is 240. I think that's the Personnel Board's cap.
Okay, I'd have to read it again. All I read was that it was, you could pay up to half of it. But,
for the cities that I think that I've worked at, they've paid it before, unless they've changed it, it's half of 480.
Okay.
I don't think I think it's capped at, because you know the sick time's capped at 320 for us.
Yeah, but the
vacation, I'm sorry, is capped at 320.
Yeah, you're right, but the sick time is not capped here.
It's capped at 240, I believe, but we'll have to double check that.
But that's something, again, that's not without precedent, even in this city. We have done that for employees in the past, before we adopted the current policy of not paying sick time at all. So I think there's things at our disposal, or at your disposal, I should say, that we could do to perhaps incentivize some of our longer-term employees that are eligible to retire, and perhaps save the city money, as Berkeley was explaining, because we do bring their replacements in. And we don't immediately replace them, as Ms. Salter was suggesting. It takes time to recruit a new employee and then to make the subsequent promotions to those positions. And it could be discussed, as was suggested, to perhaps delay those hires or subsequent promotions even, depending on what the city's financial needs were, to make these plans, these incentivized plans, work financially. Nick, what did you have? Anything on top of that?
I would just add that I sent a sheet to Robert Burgett, and if a battalion chief leaves that's topped out with 3 premiums, over a period, of course, automatically, we're going to fill that position with a captain. They're going to get promoted to battalion chief, lieutenant gets promoted to captain, driver to lieutenant. So it's not like the difference between the battalion chief and a new hire. We're not going to, that's not the gap. Right. So for a battalion chief, it's $34,000. But over 5 years, it's going to be almost $97,000. So the cumulative savings over 5 years would almost pay for someone to go. The break-even point for us is about at a driver level, which is an apparatus operator. Because as soon as we replace the apparatus operator, that replacement is making the same thing at the apparatus operator. So now the only difference is the cost of the new firefighter versus the firefighter you put in his spot, which is going to be about $25,000 the first year, maybe a little bit less depending on what incentives they have, all the way down to the year that it comes down to 0. So you'd only save about 4 years from a firefighter to an apparatus operator, 6 for a lieutenant, 7 for a captain. But you save a good bit the higher the ranking person is that retires. So there are some variables, but you also got to hire in mid-level. You can't hire topped out.
I was referring to like they're being laddered, and which they don't get the full benefit as Berkeley would, replacing a 10 with a 3, 2 or a 3 on a step grade. So he doesn't have the ranks like the police and the fire do.
Well, Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Would we have time on Monday? Sorry, I keep waiting.
Well.
What is your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, so, I work with companies over 1,000 employees, and they have an entire department that does nothing but comp planning, and the VP of HR helps, with that planning in terms of.
We have to do, it's me and Robert.
And I know, and I'm just saying that I make that.
We got one of those too.
I know.
Yeah, this is after we did the workers' comp plan, we did the payroll.
Laundry committee, we're jack of all trades.
I know. Well, I make that point just to say that, it's a complex calculation and how we come up with that. So I would say if department heads and finance want to get together between now and Monday and come up with an idea that we could execute on Monday, I say that's fine. A second option would be to just move that we support this, but we need to work out the details and we can, I don't know what we need to put in the budget for that's all part of the calculation. But just say we support it, but the details will be forthcoming during the early in the fiscal year. Those are the two options that I see, because we just have so many different options that I've written down. I don't really even know where to start or what the correct equation would be. So I need your expertise, I guess.
We really need to look, I think, too, and see, like you said, how many people the departments feel. Department heads are going to be the ones that know, instead of me and Robert, who would be more likely to be ready to go. We don't really know who's ready to retire. Do this. I would know, like, if Berkeley says $500 and $250, just to give you a starting point. Right now, if you have family coverage here, you're used to paying $375 a month, because that's what the city picks up the difference. So obviously that's a shock to go from $375 to $1,500 or $1,800, because like they said, your salary's going to go down pretty much to half if you retire 25 years. For single right now, we're used to paying $66. So the $250. So those numbers, however you want to tweak them, that's what employees are used to now. It's $375 and $66 for a single family. But so I mean, that's not bad, bro. You did pretty good.
Can I ask a quick question?
He's the assistant to the assistant finance director. But like you said, it may be where we just put the new rates aren't going to go up until January 1st, but I know we have some people obviously wanting to retire maybe October 1st. But it may be that we see if we need to put a little bit more in that line item and then details to work out, or if we can't get it
Yeah,
worked
and
out
then,
by
I mean,
Monday.
and I'm sure you might want to do some surveys to your employees that say, if this was offered, would you be more open to retiring? What is the most important factor in you retiring? It might be, I need a cap, and, I'd really like for you to take a portion of my sick time. That's just ideas that we can formulate and put together. Because I
Right
just
now,
don't want to
you
rush and
can't use your
make.
sick time for you can't, if you leave, you can't get paid for sick time, but you can use it for a retirement credit. So like, say you have 20, you can even now make it, you couldn't make it to get to your 25, but now you can. You can't make it to get vested to 10. But if you say have 24 years of service and you have enough sick time to turn in to get to 25, you don't have to physically work 25. If you work 25 and you have a year or two of sick time, you can convert. It's not converted day for day because there's a range within the month, the days, but you don't lose your sick time unless you quit here and not retire. But you can convert it to retirement credit, which gives you a little boost in your monthly pension.
Okay, and Mr. Wolverton, will you just hold the microphone, or you wanted to?
Yes, please. So how often are we able to negotiate rates? We talked about this the other night, right? Aren't we, isn't it basically a self-insured policy for the city?
We can't negotiate anything.
We're not
with them.
negotiating, we were told what we will
We're
pay.
told, we don't negotiate.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Our employees cannot even deny the insurance or say they can't afford it unless they can show proof of adequate group coverage, because they're a self-funded pool and they want everybody paying into the pool. So you can't even say you don't want the insurance due to cost unless you're covered.
It goes as far as, we have 2 employees that work in this city. One of them, and they have children, one has to have family coverage.
Sure.
And the other individual has to purchase single coverage. Can't even be covered on the family plan. That's how
Because even as a
dictatorial they are.
spouse of an employee, or even anybody in another city that's an SEIB, you can't have the benefit of the insurance and be on your spouse's insurance if they're under SEIB too. You've got to have single and they have to have family.
Okay, and just to get back to Berkeley's conversation about some of his employees, specifically, and I don't know, it might be the same for several police and fire officers, but the federal poverty discount, do we have any idea how many people, I mean, I'm assuming that's something that's offered
What is that?
to
I'm sorry.
the federal poverty level discount that you can apply for with SEIB. So it grades everywhere from 10% down to 80% or 90% premium reduction for
It's not
the
relevant
employee.
to SEIB, but if a
Well,
employee.
it is, because I'm an SEIB insured employee and I'm on it.
I haven't, have you seen that?
That's one of the adequate group coverages that they can deny if they're on the ACA. If they go down under the Affordable Care Act, if they go to the marketplace and purchase insurance, they can deny our insurance, if that's what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the
There's
federal poverty
no-
line, federal poverty limit.
Are you talking about safe harbors
reduction.
within ACA, or are you talking about ACA?
Hold on.
There's nobody working here that would qualify for that. That minimum is like $17,000 or $18,000.
Is it different than the one for the state? Because I qualify for a
Yeah,
10% reduction
But
myself,
you're in a
so
separate section of the.
that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Yours is different.
The SEIB has 2 legs to it. They have the local government and they have the state. It's
Okay.
it's 2 different arms.
Okay, hold on a
I
second.
thought it was for everybody that's under SEIB insurance.
No, they're different, okay.
We're under the local
Are you
government
good?
part.
Or did you, okay. Mr. Gwaltney?
The only comment I was going to make is, if we're going to make this commitment to doing this, that as we look at it or we have a committee that looks at it, that we identify positions that are essential, that need to be replaced immediately, and we maybe set up a moratorium for replacing other positions that may not be essential or required, maybe a 6-month window, so we can adequately determine if technology has advanced far enough to compensate for that position, or if just workforce productivity has come a long way in maybe that 25 years. That position is now either redundant or not needed. So I'd like to see a moratorium, basically, is what I'm saying. on replacing that
firing.
position.
Replacement position.
When they
Okay,
retire.
okay.
And utilize this.
Before you go, and I'm on this one last thing.
I'm not going.
What about, let me suggest this for now. What if you guys look at doing a cap? If you go out between October 1 of this year and September 30th of next year, we do some type of cap, whatever you guys feel comfortable doing for the employee. And during this year coming up, we form this committee to look at all of this. And then when we start budget hearings next year, we take up a kind of a long-term solution, you know, as if, you know, if you retire between the ages of, you know, 55 and 60, then we can tier it that you'll be capped at this. You may pay $200 for single and $500 for family. You know, if you wait till after, just something, but
To get us through this.
just to kind of
Okay,
get us through
okay,
this year.
okay.
So
So-
here's my biggest issue. If we give something to people and then we take it away next year, we're going to struggle. In other words,
Well, here's the thing.
I don't want to give and then in a year
Then
go,
you need
"Okay,
to
we
take
can't."
advantage of it while it's
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'm not saying we're going to take it away, but I'm
Okay.
just saying it gives us time.
But you're gonna
Is
commit,
there a window?
you're gonna commit for the whole, till they're age 65 of the people that take it for this year, right? Is what you're
Yes.
doing. They're not taking away next year, they're saying if
Yeah.
you retire, you're gonna get it for your.
Yeah,
But you
you
know what
can
I'm
get it
saying? I
until,
mean,
until
you
you get to 65.
That's the problem we're having in Tier 1 and Tier 2
Yeah,
right now.
It's similar to that, but it gives us the opportunity as a group, as you guys, as council people and the incoming mayor and the department heads to sit down and look at this thing and formulate something that makes sense financially for the employee as well as for the city long-term and all. And I mean, I'm kind of like Walter on the other, it just, I think it's time for us to start having these discussions and begin to plan and program these things in from a financial standpoint as we move forward and all. But that would just.
Okay,
I
okay,
just
so
thought
let
I'd
me,
put
so
out
see if we can do this. Could you get together with everyone else
Yeah.
that is interested in this issue and get with finance, and just come up with that recommendation for Monday?
Okay.
So we'll take that up. Yeah, the cap, whatever the cap
Okay.
that you recommend, and then we need to run some numbers as to what.
And brother,
might
we have to come back
change.
again then for them when we get ready to retire, because this will only affect for the next year.
Yeah, well.
We don't have our 25 in yet.
No, but my point is.
I can't afford 1,800 either.
Yeah, I think it's something that, again, it's an opportunity right now to have a window to get some that are at that point that, you know, look, it's gonna be beneficial across the board. And if they wanna go, you know, it opens up a window for others and also saves the city money. And right now, I think that's one of the keys to this thing, but it also gives us time to sit down as a group and really begin to plan and discuss how we want to move forward with some of these items.
And Mr. Gwaltney's volunteered for that committee, sounds like.
Absolutely.
Helping with that, so, okay, so if you can do that for us, that would be great. We have not dealt with anything simple tonight. That's just been the theme of the night has been total complexity.
Dr. Jones, one other question. Back to on the Tier 1, since y'all did pass that, are we still gonna leave the positions as they are and just say that they need to check in January with the new administration and/or finance before they hire? Or are they just able to go hire on January 1st for some of these that we funded in January?
What did we come to a conclusion on that? Does,
I don't think that was part of the motion, but,
That's what I'm asking.
and I know that's your.
Because it may,
it affects
That
the
affects,
calculation?
yes.
well, no, it's just that because of the, just because of now that we are gonna have that better benefit, are we, just seeing how the revenue's gonna come in and whatnot,
Right.
because Robert had projected revenue to come back stronger in January.
Yeah.
We're not sure if that's gonna be the case or not.
Yeah.
So ideally, we would've loved them to all been May 1st, but I don't know, but we left some of them January 1st, so I didn't know whether we could do that. Y'all were gonna put a thing about, they need to see if, how revenues are coming in, or whether they can just pull a list on January 1st.
Could,
Go ahead.
because I love putting things off till Monday. No, could we talk to, because I think the January people were essentially Chief Ross and, because it seemed like everybody else was more like April and May. I know Deborah pushed some to hers till May, and, could we talk to those individual department heads?
I can send you the ones that, I can send you the new ones of what we have as May, and I know which ones we have as January.
Okay, yeah, because that way we could talk to the department heads and kind of establish a plan.
Okay.
Because I mean, that was part of that discussion of gonna have to make some hard choices. So if one thing happens, then we've got to compensate
Yeah, I mean, the
on
theme
that.
was, it's by department, and whatever you can do to help delay a hire.
Well, unfortunately, in
would
police,
help.
when y'all see the new sheet, y'all hadn't had a chance to study yet, we had 2 positions that were duplicates, we got to totally eliminate, so that helps too. But I'll send you a synopsis of the vacants of what was funded in January and what was not funded till, it was January 1st or May 1st, those were the two that we did, of the
Okay.
vacants.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could get that, and then we could talk to those individual department heads and figure out.
Yep, exactly. So is that sufficient for right now? Okay. Okay. The only other thing I was trying to finish at 5:30. The employee bonuses, if this motion will really be contingent upon a surplus this year. And do we just want to, if, Mr. Burgett, if you can send out the tier bonus schedule that we've done in the past, I think that's probably what we'd want to do. But could you put that together, and then we can vote on that on Monday as well?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Because you don't have that ready, I don't think, do you?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So we'll deal with the retiree. So really what we're looking at on the agenda here, we're looking at 2408. We're trying to decide what we want to do on that. So we might just do the cap, whatever the recommendation is on Monday, and then put something in the budget for that. And then 050920, we'll get that worksheet, and it'll be, again, contingent upon a surplus. So those are the 2 items I don't think we can finish in time for council on Monday.
Will I have time to prepare beforehand?
Yes, yeah, you'll have time to prepare. Yes, you'll be fine.
Mr.
Okay.
White and I didn't have time to prepare because of the blind call last time.
Yeah, there's been I don't think we've had so many things happen at one time in the history of our city. So it's just been, and so both of you have been wonderful to get information, because I know it's been
JJ
tough.
keeps saying it's going to slow down. He said that since 2010.
I know.
I'm still waiting.
Well, we're going to get through this. Okay, so with that, we're going to just basically, without objection, we're just going to carry over the employee bonus and the retiree insurance to come with some type of recommendation, and Berkeley's already left because he's probably working on it, I guess. So, is there anything else that we need to bring before the committee before we continue it until Monday at 4:30? Okay, thank you for.
We're going to do 2408, 08, 20, 20,
Yes, yeah, those are the 2 items that we'll take up, and the second one's pretty fast, so we'll just, the 2408 might be a little more time-consuming based on whatever the recommendation is. Okay, thank you for your hard work tonight, your dedication, I appreciate it.
So you want me to go ahead and publicly announce the meeting on Monday, and we're
Yeah.
continued until then?
Yes, we're going to continue until Monday at 4:30.
4:30?
4:30. So we're continued.